we are going to spend the next half hour hearing from a man who needs no introduction here, Kyrylo Budanov, who, as you all know, is Chief of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. Shh. He is a man whose job it is to understand what the enemy are up to, what their capabilities are, and how Ukraine can best defeat them. This time a year ago, Mr. Budanov, we had a conversation on this very stage. And in that conversation, you told me that the war had put the Russian economy and army into a terrible state. 12 months later, how would you assess Russia's situation?
Перш за все, вітаю всіх.
First of all, welcome, everyone. Greetings. Well, your question is more about the Russian Federation. Am I right in understanding you?
Absolutely, but it's your assessment of the Russian Federation's strengths and weaknesses.
Ну що ж, коли ми з вами говоримо про нашого ворога.
Okay, when we speak about our enemy, the Russian Federation, we have to take a larger view and to take a look at the military sphere and non-military, which should include economy, financial status, and political and social stability. As regards the military component, the situation stays pretty much the same. They've pretty much exhausted the Russian reserves. They've used it up. As regards new manufacturing on some items, they have reached quite a serious level, but this is not a very broad range of items. I'll give you some numbers. The advanced jet fighter, the Su-57 that they are so proud of. The plan for 2024 is to produce 12 aircraft. No, not that many. T-90TM tanks for this year, 197 tanks are upland, which is basically nothing in this kind of situation. The same with other items. As regards striking capabilities, they've made much more progress. Missiles, for instance, like Iskander, they focus their attention on Iskander missiles. And they are massively using them, Iskander-M missiles. Aerial guided bombs, they have also increased the production thereof by several-fold. And this makes an impact on the front line. This is the weapons that work at the tactical level and primarily aimed at the military close to the front line and around it. If we take the economic situation, they are fighting, they are resisting, they feel that the decline is there, but they keep fighting. They forecast that in summer 2025, the negative impact on the economy will start being very painful. This is related to what they do now in their country because they want to get as much prepared to this as possible. They still are planning to emerge victorious in this war. We can accept that, and they basically are not sure as what to do to make this happen. As to social, psychological, and political aspects of life, some things are more related to politics, some to others, to some other. The fatigue of war is obvious there. We've been at war for 10 years and 3 years of large-scale war, and the war has affected large swathes of population in Russia. Their propaganda showed to the populace that they've captured more than 30% of our territory, and that makes ordinary, everyday Russians very happy. And there is another aspect. High salaries for the servicemen. They're especially happy to get a one-off lump sum when they sign contracts. And payments that they receive in case of serious injuries or if someone is killed in action. A lot of families in Russia are quite relaxed about their loved ones being killed as long as they get remuneration for that. As regards payments, there's a decline in the recruiting volunteers, so the Russians decided to raise the one-off payments for signing contracts. These payments, these bonuses, if you will, depend on the area from which people are drafted. There are a lot of fraudulent schemes when people come from as far away as Vladivostok, for instance. They come to Moscow and they sign contract there because the contract for someone from Moscow will cost more. So these payments reach up to 2 million rubles as one-off payment. This is a huge amount of money for Russians. Maybe for people from Moscow this is not that much, but for people from tundra, from Siberia, from far away, they've never seen that much money, never held it in their hands. So the situation in that respect for them are more or less stable. They forecast that in summer 2025 their problems will be much worse because several factors will merge at that time. Financial problems, lack of recruits for drafting, and they will have either to announce mobilization or to bring down the level of intensity of the military actions, which will be very critical for them. That's what I can say about that.
Very clear overview. One other element that has changed in the past year has been the more obvious partnership between Russia and Iran, which is now supplying missiles as well as Shaheds. Russia and China, where they are also, it seems, supplying components increasingly. How do you assess this growing, let's call it, axis of supply for Russia? What difference does that make to your enemy?
Ви знаєте, ви так цікаво сформулювали питання, згадавши...
Well, you mentioned Iran and China, but you failed to mention North Korea, which sounded strange for me. As chief of the Defense Intelligence, I can tell you that the worst problem we are facing now is the one that comes from North Korea, because the military equipment and weaponry that they provide for Ukraine really make a difference at the front line. We've noticed a pattern that as soon as North Korean shipments come to Russia, some 7 to 9 days down the road, the hostilities get intensified for a couple of weeks at the minimum. Well, they provide ballistic missiles and so on, but that's not that painful for us. But as regards munitions from North Korea, it's really bad for us, and so far we cannot do anything about that.
So you can see the trains coming in, and 9 days later you see the impact on the front.
Ми бачимо повний маршрут, повірте мені.
Yeah, we see the whole routes of deliveries. This is the 21st century, the century of technologies. You cannot hide anything. You can hide something small, but not large-scale bulks of weaponry. We can track it from the point of origin to the point of delivery at the front line.
You're absolutely right. I should have mentioned North Korea at the outset, but to put the three in order in terms of their impact on your on Russia's ability to hit you harder now? Would you put North Korea top, and then which one next?
Знаєте, як вам скажу? Буде Північна Корея, потім довго нікого нема.
Then North Korea, then nobody for a long length of line, and then all the rest. Because the volumes of weaponry coming from North Korea are not comparable with anything else.
That's really interesting. Thank you. One of the other things that you said a year ago that stuck with me was you said that Ukraine needed to change the logic of this war and to ensure that the initiative was not in the hands of Russia, that much depended on what Ukraine's capability were. And over the last year, we have seen tremendous improvements in Ukraine's offensive-defensive capability. You've seen it in the Black Sea very powerfully. We've seen it in your ability with your growing drone and UAWs to strike within Russia. We've also seen it, I guess, in Kursk offensive. Can you describe to me how you, as a head of military intelligence, now assess your country's ability to take the war to Russia?
Знаєте, як громадянин,
You know, as a Ukraine national, primarily, every one of us wants more, understandably. At the same time, we have to remain very objective in our vision. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we for sure were dealing with one of the most powerful armies in the world. Ukraine was a bit weaker. We have to recognize it. And the very fact that in almost 3 years of this full-scale invasion and more than a decade of this war in general, we are still holding. Meanwhile, Russia, with its huge stockpiles of weapons and ammunition from the Soviet time, plus whatever they produced throughout the time of their independence, plus what they've got from the North Korean guys and elsewhere, they could not break Ukraine. This is the most important thing. Our ability to bring the war to the territory of Russia, I would rather focus here on our ability to deal long-range strikes deep into the territory and the philosophy behind it. You know, it changed the outlook a bit. It affected somehow the factors that I mentioned, the one of social and psychological impact on the public there. Before that, the Russians would be living, thinking that they're living in the most powerful country worldwide. So maybe we are not better off compared with someone in the West, but on the other hand, we are the strongest. No one in the world can even think about confronting us. Now, with those first explosions in Moscow across Russian territory, it's all undermined this strong belief, and this is the key benefit of all those long-range strikes. The breaking of their deep belief that they're living in safety.
And do you think you need to do more of that?
While the war goes on, we need to do the max. If you're able to do more, we have to. No limits.
Well, let's talk about limits, because as you know, there is a very intense conversation going on in London and Washington about lifting potentially the limits on the use of ATACMS and Storm Shadow and the other long-range weapons. The fear that many have, and I guess particularly President Biden, if we believe the reports, is that this will be an escalation that is too dangerous. How do you react to that?
You know, don't get offended, but I've been hearing those faint stories, myths on escalation since, 2014, then this full-scale time. What kind of escalation when we are talking about? When we have a standard conventional war with practically all types of available conventional munitions and armaments in use. So it's a matter for discussion, actually.
Well, let me give you some possible examples. The escalation need not be too nuclear. That is one that we have talked about a lot. But another concern is that President Putin would give much more assistance to countries and groups in the Middle East to escalate the war there, that there are other ways that he could escalate. And yesterday, I guess, or the day before, the statement that he gave was pretty unequivocal. If he made very clear what he would... Now, should we just not take that seriously?
Yeah, a direct answer, no, we shouldn't. Another thing, how can he help? We're coming from the situation when he is asking for assistance himself. What kind of assistance can he give there? A SWAT team? Maybe 50 man-pads? What else? What next? Everything they have in the Russian army, they use here. It goes right from the factory to the battlefield here. And by the way, nothing really is being delivered free of charge. Whatever they have spare, they sell. But in a global sense, they can do nothing until the war rages here in Ukraine. This is one of the aspects they have to very carefully look into. The year 2025. You know, this margin between 25 and 26 is, some sort of date for them. They want to be able to finish it before. If they do not come out of this war like self-professed winners, then some more distant future for them, think of 30 years about it, will actually be the period when no one there will be able to see their Russia as a superpower. For 30 years. So actually, just two countries will remain, the United States and China. For China, they say this is like extolment of China. And for the U.S., they speak of U.S. domination in the world. But there is no place for Russia. And because of that, this is a very key period for them. And because of that, they will be doing everything to somehow stay afloat. Otherwise, they will be thrown away from this world orbit. They will lose this global leadership, and they wouldn't want it.
You mentioned a couple of times that 25-26 is a key time period for Russia. Can you explain why 25-26 is so important?
It will take quite some time. I'm using their own calculations, Russian calculations in their documents. Just please understand that. This is about the financial, economic considerations, the military calculations, because they do understand the army is next to completely destroyed. They're just getting draftees. This is not an army able to have an expedition force to go somewhere. They cannot show anything on the Middle East.
This is your assessment as Chief of Defensive Intelligence of your understanding of Russia's own planning. The 25-26 is a key moment.
Well, you can listen to something what more or less people with knowledge say, not what they have on TV, but those in the know. They say, we better get out of it until 2026.
Let's turn to one other topic, which is the pace of innovation on the battlefield. Another thing in our conversations last year, you were very clear about was that pace of innovation was remarkably fast and accelerating, particularly in drone warfare. As you look back, tell me how surprised are you at the pace at which Ukraine has innovated, and what do you think is coming next? Because if this pace of innovation continues, what will warfare look like on the battlefield in a year or two's time?
Quite an interesting question, I'd say. In terms of what could surprise me, I don't think I can be surprised by anything because we've seen, I think, everything already. from around the world, from the Far East to something deep in the West, we've seen everything. What we could expect in terms of technology development, I think UAVs, drone technologies will be even more advanced. And the thing that not everyone is willing to recognize. Unfortunately, we people are weaklings. When there is a choice between dying or not, most of the people will prefer not dying. Now with this new type of technologies like land robots, some prospects emerge, but these are just emerging things. In this calendar year, I think the number of those robot systems will grow immensely in the order of tens, and definitely if it is possible to send a drone or 10 of them, it will be easier to send them than one soldier.
I think it's too simple to say. Ukraine has been extremely impressive in the pace at which its drone production and innovation has come on. But the Russians are also pretty good at drones. And they are good at electrical jamming. And they are making life difficult for your drone battalions. This is like a game of cat and mouse, right? Who can innovate fastest?
Well, there's nothing new about it. It's about technology development. There are some solutions, some innovations coming in, particularly in armaments. And this goes hand in hand with some countermeasures that are being developed fast. This has always been like that. We can go deep into history. Second World War, First World War. The Second World War, there was a competition between cannon caliber and the armor, or say how powerful an engine is and how deep this lorry can go in mud. So yeah, one side of it, we have drones develop them, another side develops countermeasures, and vice versa. But still, I think drones have become a trademark, if you will. And this will be the key path for development for some 2-3 decades to come. So we will see more drones and more countermeasures against them.
So as Chief of Defense Intelligence, your job is to understand what the enemy is going to do and to understand what your own side's strengths and weaknesses are. And we could end perhaps by you giving me, I know nothing surprises you, and I'm sure nothing stops you sleeping at night, but what are the things that you are most worried about? And what are the things that you are most confident about? And what are the things that your Western partners can most usefully do to help?
What I'm most worried or concerned with, as a military man, I'm mostly concerned about killings or maimings of our servicemen. This is something you cannot return, reverse. You can build another drone or tank, but lives are priceless. This is the most important thing.
That's absolutely and powerfully said. What about the areas of strength that you are most optimistic about? Where do you think Ukraine has and is showing particular strength?
Ukraine is a country of opportunities. Whatever is happening is just another yet confirmation of it. I'm a strong proponent of it. The more I live, the more I see of it. Everything is possible here. We've started making drones in thousands, doing them from scratch. A couple of years ago, it would have been inconceivable. No one would think about it seriously. Yet, there we are. So I think we are able to move in a non-standard way, think in that way. So if we think we can do it, we will do it. Another thing, just coming from that, like it or not, but we are fighting for our own land. No leeway, no options. You cannot say, okay, I've got enough, I'm quitting. No. For Russians, they don't have this. They have very systemic, powerful punch, but they lag in time. The system is lagging in time. They don't have this belief or understanding. I've been able to listen or talk to lots of the detainees, POWs, and it's not about something they say during interrogation. Most of the time they say, I'm not because I want my country to remain great. They say, we are for money. Meanwhile, we are fighting for our land, our people, our future.
And to conclude, what is it that your partners can most usefully do in the very short term? Let's say before you and I hopefully meet again at another such discussion.
Я вам повторюсь.
I'd repeat myself, Ukraine is a country of opportunity, so no need to fear or to be concerned with anything. All those kind of dilemmas, whether the escalation comes or not, let me repeat it again. Everyone has used everything available. There is no way to make it any worse. From here, no need to be fearful of any other next step. We can only do the right thing. Everyone here in the audience, everyone around, in civilized countries, even in those, sorry to say, not so civilized ones, they do understand who is the aggressor, who came to conquer, and who is fighting for his or her own land. I do believe in God, and they say that the God always helps those who believe in correct, right things. So I believe in us.
Thank you.